In The Witcher 3, a certain design detail was discovered after 10 years that blew my mind. Details have leaked regarding the casting for the God of War series. Sony has responded harshly to Tencent regarding their plagiarism. All this and a few other smaller news items in today's episode. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel because new videos are posted here almost every day. If you enjoy the video, leave a thumbs up. And now let's get started. Let's start with some God of War topics. For some time now, there's been talk that Sony is really pushing hard to adapt its iconic works for the screen. And so, some time ago, the movie Uncharted hit theaters with Tom Holland playing Nathan Drake. It wasn't the best movie. On Rotten Tomatoes, it actually has an 89% score from critics, but from fans, it's a bit lower, only 41%. Yesterday, we talked about new information regarding the Horizon series or movie, plus Chad Stahelski is still working on Ghost of Tsushima, and on top of that, Amazon is producing a God of War series, which, as far as we know, will adapt the latest duology, that is God of War from 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. And so, thanks to a leak, we found out what criteria the creators are using to select actors for the key roles. The information comes from scooper Daniel RPK, who in the past has had some misses, but sometimes he manages to hit the mark, so now we'll use his latest information. For the role of Kratos, they are looking for a man between 40 and 60 years old of any nationality. The role requires comfort with intense physical activity, hand-to-hand combat, and possible nudity. We also have information here regarding Atreus. They are looking for a boy between 9 and 12 years old of any nationality. The role, just like the older one, will involve hand-to-hand combat and weapons training. In the games, Atreus mainly uses a bow, so I guess that's what they're referring to here. They're looking for Odin, that is, a white male between 60 and 70 years old, and he's actually supposed to be a regular member of the series. That's interesting, because Odin didn't appear at all in the first part, he wasn't in the 2018 game, he only showed up in Ragnarok, and before that, he was just this specter hanging somewhere in the background, a distant god who, if he ever came down, could mean big trouble. I'm curious about these changes and how they're going to approach the source material here. They're also looking to cast most likely Baldur, who is supposed to be a white male between 30 and 40 years old. And here it's written that the character needs to be comfortable with fighting, simulated sex, and nudity. This description, on the other hand, suggests to me that Amazon is probably going to try to raise the age rating here, because after all, there weren't any sex scenes in the new God of War games. And I also have a casting call for the role of Sif, which is for a woman of any nationality, aged 30 to 40. She must be comfortable with simulated sex and nudity. Let's move on. Speaking of game adaptations, there's been some news about the Sleeping Dogs movie. Yes, they're adapting that forgotten game. Actor Simu Liu posted this update saying that the script draft has been completed, and here we can see his sleeping dog. Simu Liu is an actor you might know from his role as Shang-Chi in the MCU movie or from Barbie, where he played one of the Kens. While playing The Witcher 3 and exploring the map of Velen, you might have noticed that an important element of its structure is the Pontar River, which according to all indications flows into the ocean. So how do you explain the fact that when you walk alongside it, you'll notice that it doesn't actually flow? It just stands still. And probably many of you thought that this is just a developer shortcut, maybe to help with optimization, that they just didn't feel like making a flowing river, for example, because it's easy to cross on horseback since it doesn't have a current. Well, it seems we were all mistaken, because the YouTuber Oni Austin decided to analyze this phenomenon, and his conclusions are truly surprising. In his video, he examines seemingly illogical features, such as the lack of water flow. As I mentioned at the beginning, the water in the river appears to stand still from start to finish rather than flow. If we look at the map, the river flows toward the ocean, but in the game there are branches that flow in the opposite direction. If we look at a small stream, we can see that the water in it is flowing. So the stationary Pontar isn't just a result of developer laziness. There must be something more to it here. On top of that, in a place far from the ocean, there's a whale skeleton lying around. What could it be doing here? We can see erosion here, forming along the waterline. And in addition, one section of the river is so swollen that it looks like a lake, flooding the low-lying areas. So Austin looked at the map of the Witcher world, in which The Witcher 3 is just a small part. Velen is located where the river flows into the ocean, but the Pontar starts high up in the mountains. And now we get to the heart of the matter, which is Austin's theory that this entire area was designed with attention to every logical hydrological detail, if I can put it that way. In reality, it's a submerged estuary, meaning a former river mouth that was flooded by the rising sea level. A place where the river once ended its course on land, but today lies underwater. Austin presents several pieces of evidence to support his theory. Dead trees along the banks, traces of salt water, and even the previously mentioned whale skeleton somewhere deep in the forest. So the whole situation is supposed to look like this. At first, there was a normal river flowing here, then the climate warmed, glaciers began to melt, and sea levels rose. As a result, the sea, so to speak, entered the river valley. The river valley then ended up underwater, creating a mix of fresh and salt water. The water level in the rivers rose and spread across the entire area, and that's exactly why the Pontar in The Witcher 3 stands still instead of flowing. A great detail and a fantastic video by Austin. Watching it, I was a bit taken aback, because I never would have thought that the stationary Pontar was an intentional choice by CD Projekt. Let's move on. We could talk for hours about PlayStation's live service games, mostly in a negative context, although it has to be said that they did get one of them very right. I'm talking of course about Helldivers 2, which has performed phenomenally well both on consoles and on PC, built up a large player base, and delivered a quality product that people still want to keep playing. At launch, the game reached almost 500,000 peak players, though recently the numbers have been a bit lower, with the 24-hour peak reaching a maximum of 36,000. But it's worth noting that this is a highly seasonal game. Every now and then an update is released that brings a ton of people back into the game. The latest update brought in 178,000 players. So the question is, do the developers at Arrowhead want to keep Helldivers 2 going indefinitely? It seems not, because job postings have appeared on their website suggesting that they're working on a new game. We are looking for a talented senior systems designer to join our growing design department and help shape the foundations of a completely new, unannounced project. This is your chance to be part of a cooperative action game from the very beginning. You will be at the heart of creating and refining core systems, progression loops, and the combat feel and movement just like in a game. The description also suggests that the game will most likely be developed using the Unreal Engine. The decision to change the engine may be due to the fact that they had previously worked on Autodesk Stingray, but unfortunately it is no longer being developed. A few years ago, EA and FIFA parted ways. Since the 1990s, the football series was called FIFA. However, that changed in 2023 and the series was renamed EA Sports FC. For some time now, FIFA has been announcing that they will create their own competition for EA, but it turns out they have partnered with another very good football game. I'm talking about Football Manager. For those who don't know, it's a simulator where you manage a football club, but it's much more advanced than the career mode in FIFA. The creators of FM proudly announced that they've happily signed their first deal with FIFA, which will grant them official licenses for the biggest competitions, including the 2026 World Cup held in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. The new installment will feature official competitions under the FIFA brand. Oh, there will even be a Women's World Cup, so there'll definitely be something to play, right? This is Tim Schafer. He's the guy who founded Double Fine Productions, the studio responsible for a classic like Psychonauts. The title was an adventure game that debuted in 2005. The main character had this ability to enter other characters' minds, so the levels were representations of psychological issues, where we had puzzles or other platforming elements. The game became a classic, and years later a sequel was released. It turned out to be a commercial success, and now the studio Double Fine Productions has decided to release a game from a completely different brand, namely Keeper. There we control a lantern and its companion, which is a kind of bird. It's also an adventure game where we solve puzzles and other such little things. On top of that, the game looks beautiful, but unfortunately that wasn't enough. Interest in the game is extremely low. At launch, there were only 165 players at one time. The next day the peak was 191, and right now it's 155. Oh well, it doesn't look too good. The reviews, on the other hand, are very positive, but when browsing through them, a large number mention that the optimization is completely messed up. Interestingly, the publisher of the game is Xbox. Honestly, I can't recall seeing even a single announcement or a single ad for this game. It seems to me that Xbox totally ignored any marketing for Keeper, and that might have been one of the reasons why the game now has 191,000. Wait, I meant 191 players. It's a shame because it's possible that this is actually a very good game. The ongoing battle between Sony and Tencent continues. For context, let's quickly remind ourselves what this is all about. Namely, Tencent released a trailer for a game called Light of Motrium, which in many moments looks like it copied Horizon 1-to-1. The universe, the main heroine, the promotional images for the title, they are very heavily inspired by Sony's IP. Although in terms of gameplay, it's closer to Palworld. Sony is getting angry and says, no, we're not going to allow this. Only one Chinese giant is allowed to rip us off, and that's NetEase. Let's ignore the fact that on our own channel we're trying out a game that copies Spider-Man's mechanics 1-to-1. But we're going to come after you. And so, a lawsuit was filed. In it, they claimed that Light of Motrium is a clone of one of their most valuable intellectual properties. They accused them of ripping off the heroine, Aloy, and of deliberately causing many gaming fans to mistake Light of Motrium for another installment of Horizon. Next, Tencent filed an appeal against the lawsuit.
I believe that until we are proven guilty, every man, woman, and child in this country is innocent.
They said there that they are not a clone, that they don't know that it has nothing to do with it. They were then accused that this wasn't about fighting plagiarism, but rather about Sony wanting to turn ubiquitous genre elements into their own trademarks. And now we have reports that Sony dismissed their appeal, saying that they are wrong. They write that if they weren't right, then Tencent wouldn't have postponed their game to 2027. They say that the damage has already been done and will continue to happen. They also refer to the media and to people who very quickly notice the similarities between these two games. And I think that's about it. Now we wait for Tencent to once again say that they didn't know, they didn't mean to, and I'll let you know about that in one of the upcoming videos. Subscribe to the channel. Take care, leave a thumbs up,